We've known each other for I think around 15 years now, since the Square, where I believe you had Michelin stars for 20 years.
Yeah, we had a long old stretch there.
You obviously very well known as training with, or working with Marco Pierre-White as your business partner, and now you've got Kitchen W8, Elystan Street, and most recently Notto, and I think you're up to other things as well. So thanks again for making the time for us. How's Notto going? Your most recent opening was Notto in Covent Garden. Tell us a little bit about that and the concept and where the idea came from.
Yeah, listen, Notto's been a really refreshing exercise. I enjoy everything that I'm involved with. But basically, very quickly, Notto was born really during lockdown, towards the end of lockdown, having done all sorts of different stuff in lockdown, as we all did. One of the things that I came to see was that actually, if you've got fantastic fresh pasta and a great sauce, executing a really delicious plate of food is very straightforward. And we were doing little meal kits and takeaway stuff during lockdown. That then morphed into to Notto in the early days, which was delivery kits going home. Very simple, really beautifully done. Obviously, when lockdown came to an end, everybody stopped eating at home. Everyone wanted to go out, so we then thought about opening a restaurant, and that's how the first Notto came about. And listen, for me, it's just fun to do something that's very different to everything that's gone before. Ultimately, my career has been in, I hate the term, but it communicates something effectively, fine dining. And Notto is much more accessible, open, fast-moving, fast and furious, delicious, great price point, but it's also a great product.
Fantastic. How does it compare for you working in or being an owner of a business like that compared to here? Is it much more straightforward being involved in that type of business?
Listen, they're different challenges. I'm not really a restaurateur. I'm a chef. I really am a chef at heart, and I love cooking. And for me, I'll never be able to escape that. And Elystan Street will always be where I come to cook. It's where I cook seasonal, lovely, delicious things, I think, and Elystan Street gives me the opportunity to get really, involved with cooking and seasonality in the process, and it's special, and I love it, and I couldn't live without it, really. Notto is a completely different thing. The thing that makes Notto work is the fact that in my career, I've thought about doing all sorts of different things, but the reality is, as soon as you try and scale something, particularly when you have come from a fine dining environment, it's difficult. Most things aren't scalable. Pasta is not only scalable, you can actually argue that making a huge brat pan full of amazing ragu is going to be even more delicious than trying to make 4 portions at home, because you've got to invest in slow cooking. You've got to give it the love, and big containers of big pans of slow cooking things are at least every bit as good as smaller pans. And so pasta is something that is scalable. And so Notto it's great, it's fun. It has been so far pretty smooth running. We've got some great people involved. Less bodies per customer, so to speak, because it is a simpler product. But it's different. But it's been great fun.
Obviously, the industry's had its challenges over the last few years. What would you say have been your main challenges, and how have you overcome them with your businesses?
Listen, I think for me it's probably been twofold. Staff has been probably the biggest challenge that we've faced. It is getting better, I think. But that has been, without a team, you're struggling. I have always, every restaurant I've ever been involved with has been open 7 days a week, and that means that you cannot rely on individuals. You are completely reliant upon building great teams, and that's hard when you don't have people. And so that has been a real struggle. And for me, quietly becoming a dinosaur of the industry, the reality is time passes, and all of a sudden I kind of find myself now as one of the older statesmen of the industry. That has also been really challenging, is keeping the projects that I'm involved in relevant in a very fast moving and fiercely competitive environment. And there is now the sheer number of great cooks and restaurateurs out there makes it challenging, and the rate at which the industry is evolving in London, and the rate at which what the emerging customer wants, the younger crowd, has moved so quickly that if you don't keep your product relevant, you just lose that tranche of the market. And So that's been really hard too, constantly looking at what we're doing to make sure that, when you wake up in the morning, is Elystan Street, for example, still somewhere that you want to go? Or is it always going to be one of those young guns with tats over in East London? And so it's hard.
Sounds like you're still enjoying it though.
Yeah, listen, it's what I do. It's, I think, it is, yeah, I do. I love it. I love it. The struggle can be quite onerous sometimes, but looking after people, cooking, I do. This industry has been my life, and I do still love it.
What would you say has been the highlight of your career? Was it your first Michelin star, or opening your first restaurant, or is it something you've done recently?
I don't know whether I could pinpoint it to one. I said, the Square was a very special place. It was me when I was kind of at my prime, I guess, and so the second star there, and not even so much the second star. Nigel and I. We wanted our cake and to eat it. We wanted to achieve all sorts of things with our restaurant, and we did achieve them all. Equally, when the time was right to move on, and Elystan Street came around, Rebecca, my partner here, and at Kitchen W8, we had a very clear idea of what we wanted to open. And it was it was really lovely and exciting to be in a position to open a new restaurant. The Square, I've been there 25 years. I had changed I as a human being had changed a lot in that time. What I enjoyed cooking had evolved significantly over that time. So to be able to not reinvent, but refresh, reboot what we thought was a great restaurant, was exciting, and Elystan Street has been a brilliant journey. I've really enjoyed working with Rebecca. She's a phenomenal restaurateur, but equally Notto has been very successful and a joy. So I don't know. They've all been fun.
Yeah. I remember actually, I think back in those days, Michelin had a reputation for being quite small portions. I was always surprised at how much food there was on the plates at the Square. I think that's feedback you used to get quite often about the volume wasn't necessarily as, you were always quite generous with your portions, I always felt.
No, I think the greatest thing about the Square was the fact that whatever we did or didn't achieve was a byproduct of what we wanted to do, and we went out there to give people a great time. The Square was 7 days a week. It was a big dining room. We did big numbers. We cooked great food. We cooked what we wanted to cook rather than what we thought people wanted us to cook or what the guides maybe wanted us to cook. And I think that kept, it had a very true kind of thread running through it. We were out to give people a great time, and I think that's what made the Square the great place that it was.
It's a great place. What's your favourite dish amongst all your restaurants you have now?
Oh God, it's difficult. It is. I think it's interesting. Signature dishes aren't something that you choose. Yes, okay, you choose them because you put them on the menu, but in the end, they become signature dishes because customers respond correctly to them. And I would say at the Square, maybe in the 25 years we were there might have been half a dozen dishes that could be deemed to be signature dishes, and the 8 years that have passed since the Square closed, and it still comes up in conversation quite a lot. The dish that I think the residue of all the greatness that went out of that kitchen was the langoustine dish.
That was your favourite?
And I think it was one of those dishes, even at the time, I knew every time I put it on the plate, I knew that's going to be a happy customer. I never tired of putting it on the plate. There are a few other dishes like that, but I think the langoustine dish at the Square is probably the greatest dish that kitchen produced. And now
here with all your restaurants now, your favourite dish?
Listen, I think things have moved on here. One of the things that has changed massively when I started cooking, you might occasionally get a vegetarian walk into the restaurant, and boy, that has changed. What people want to eat, what they need to eat, what they can eat, allergies, preferences, diet, whatever it might be, now drives. It's a big part of our operation. Dealing sounds like a negative word, but accommodating all of that. And at the end of the Square, that had become really challenging because we weren't particularly accommodating, so we had to respond ad hoc to customer requirements. When I opened Elystan Street, I thought, right, I want to make this restaurant absolutely accessible to everybody. And Rebecca and I thought really carefully about that. We want to make sure we've got vegan dishes on the menu. We want to make sure we've got not too much gluten. We want to make sure we've got everything is accommodated for on the menu without it reading like some weird list of And some of the greatest things that we have a cashew nut hummus dish that's probably it has become a signature dish that is vegan, is utterly delicious, and I kind of think it's very much where food's at in London now. It is what it is. That dish has been not on the menu the whole time, but it represents well what we like to do here. It's delicious. We're in the business of giving pleasure, and whatever it is whatever we serve has got to give pleasure. So I don't want to take a dish and pare away aspects of it in order to make it gluten-free or vegan. You've got to come up with things as they need to be. Some dishes are full of butter and whatever, and other dishes aren't. So some of the dishes that I like most actually are some of the kind of new wave dishes that we've done here. I also wanted to make sure that Elystan Street had a very different identity, that people didn't see it as just being a little residential square or something. And so we put burrata on the menu, put a twice-baked soufflé on the menu, put the cashew nut hummus on the menu. We put dishes that gave the menu an undeniably fresh identity compared to things that I've cooked before, and those things have now become really special to what we do.
What's your top tip to a new young chef coming into the industry?
Oh God, I don't know. Coming from an old timer, listen. I think ultimately, life is long and careers are long, and I think in order to be able to really stand the test of time, you've got to be able to cook. And I think actually things have changed massively. Now, there was a big phase where all that kind of low temperature cooking, water bath cooking, this and that, deconstructing everything kind of crept in, and that was, I'd get chefs coming to work for me who'd worked for a year, I won't mention any names, but at certain restaurants, and actually they just couldn't cook. They knew how to vacuum pack something and put it in a water bath, but that was about it. Learn your craft. That's still ultimately really important. And I think these days it's also, we're now obliged to understand cooking with reference to the sort of the backdrop of, the planet and the world and carbon footprint. And I'm not perfect, I'm far from perfect on that front, but cooking seasonally, knowing how to make the best of local produce is the way forward. And actually there are lots of restaurants doing that now. Look at someone like Dorian, it's absolutely got its finger on the pulse. It's still it's delicious, exciting, but it's real and it's right.
Tell us about what's next for you. I know you mentioned earlier about having some other interests in other restaurants. Seems you've got fingers in quite a few pies. Tell us what's next.
I've got my fingers in quite a few pies, but some things I'm very involved with, some things I'm not. I just sit on the sideline and enjoy being involved with. The guys at Perilla. I've been a partner in that restaurant since day one, and it's been a real joy to watch two very talented young guys create a very special restaurant out in Newington Green, a very successful business. They've now just opened Morcella. Which is, this is very early days, but it's packed, and I'm sure they will make a huge success of that. That is a real treat and privilege to be able to kind of just, watch from the sidelines and help give people the opportunity to realise their full potential and live their dream, and boy, those two have done that, so that's exciting. There are obviously plans to expand Notto. That was the idea behind it, is something that's scalable. We don't want to take over the world, but it is a business that is scalable. So we are, we are hoping to, we plan to open more Nottos, each and every year. Equally, I'm fast tracking towards 60, and it's time to try and, make sure that I enjoy these prime years. Kids are gone. Yeah. My wife and I still play very nicely together, and to enjoy a balanced life.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much for making time for us today.
That's a pleasure.
Really good. So thanks again.